Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a hefty dose of optimism. I'm your co-host, Seth Boyd.
And I am Megan Tierney.
And I'm Jim Briggs. Special guest.
Once again.
Very special.
There he is, Jim Briggs. Our such a special guest. Doesn't need an introduction. You heard him on our episode of The Thing. He's back to not talk about a horror movie, but talk about a movie we all love. Before we dive into it, Jim, I just have to say a guest we had most recently on actually told us before coming on that they listened to a few episodes and they listened to The Thing and they sent it to all their friends and they loved your commentary. So we're very excited to have you back on. Just know the fans listen. They enjoyed you. So happy to have you back. And we're talking about The Prestige, Christopher Nolan's film from 2006, which I just finished rewatching. It's a blast. But before I tell you what I like about it, Jim, why don't you dive in with why you chose this? What stands out to you about it, and we'll just get into it.
Okay, yeah. So very happy, by the way, to be back here. This is something I look forward to because of how much fun I had last time. I feel like just a guy with the most imposter syndrome ever on a discussion like this because you two are film aficionados. I don't exactly consider myself one, but I think what the perspective. Yeah, the perspective we actually feel the same way. No, but like I would say that like maybe I'm like an elevated film enthusiast. Like I was a guy who used to be very obsessed with film, and now I think I watch movies. I like the way I watch movies now because I'm not looking for the things I used to look for in terms of like technical execution. Like before I'd be like, oh yes, I really like the way the costumes are integrated with the set here. I don't really think about those things necessarily anymore. Now it's more about how is this movie making me feel? What kind of meaning am I deriving from this movie? Is it something that's elevating my mind? Is it elevating my soul? Is it elevating my heart? And so I sent you some movie ideas that more or less kind of have this or do this for me. And when you let me know that we were going to talk about The Prestige, I just like cheered because this is just, it's one of those movies that does so much for the viewer. And it is one of my favorite movies for many reasons. But I think my favorite thing about this movie is that I think I have watched this movie maybe a dozen times. And every time I watch it, I get more out of it with the way that the story is told, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it's just a movie that gives me joy, and it just elevates my thinking, and it sticks with me long after I watch it. And every time I watch it, it's just the experience just kind of gets a layer deeper, and a layer deeper, and a layer, and I just love that. I love that, and it's just so I'm really excited to be talking about The Prestige. One of my favorite movies. There you go.
Absolutely. I love it. And Megan, we talked about The Prestige a good amount in our Memento episode because I think we both kind of described this as one of our other favorite Nolan movies, if I'm remembering that correctly.
This is the first.
No, you hadn't seen this one before. Okay, I'm thinking of Interstellar. I think we both liked.
Yes, that's right.
So I'm so glad. That's right. This is your first time seeing it, so I have to hear first time viewing.
Oh
yes. Someone who likes Nolan, who's seen a lot of his movies. What do you think of The Prestige?
I should also preface, Jim, it's getting to a point where this, like, I have not seen any single movie that we've done. This is my first viewing. It's like becoming the requirement. And I'm so glad, like I said, I'm having a blast here watching all these cool movies. But like, I watched this with my boyfriend. My boyfriend had seen it. Like, he's like, yeah, everybody's seen it. And
everybody's seen it 27 times. And,
literally. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Nolan-esque aspect because I feel like it was such a it's such like a step-by-step almost of what you kind of feel like Nolan movies kind of became, especially getting around the era of even before Interstellar, like what's the main dream one?
Inception, right?
Inception. So getting like to the twistiness that becomes Inception, but I feel like you can see these like underlinkings of what that is kind of. So that's fun to see in it. But more than that, I think it's like it has a very nostalgic quality, and it kind of stands stands a lot on its own. It feels kind of in of its time when it came out, I feel like too. So so fun. Not a lot of magic movies from what I've seen, and this is a great one. Considering that it's also, I love the incorporation of potentially a little sci-fi-esque, like if we could call it that. What even is?
So I think we can call this a sci-fi,
right?
Soft
like
sci-fi.
That's what I think. It's like it's almost there. So I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think this is like steampunk is an aesthetic that is very cool, but also there's not a whole lot of good media of steampunk. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Like I haven't read that much. I think it's maybe more of a thing that there's some sci-fi novels and probably like manga and stuff. But like for movies, this is a pretty steampunk movie. We have Tesla, we have the coils, we have all that. This is Victorian era kind of. And there is folks, we're gonna, as always, we're gonna spoil this movie. This movie came out 18 years ago, so you better have seen it, at least prior to listening to this. Follow Megan's logic here and watch it before listening to the episode.
Of course.
Because there's a lot of twists in this movie, but there is a sci-fi device designed by Tesla, who's played by David Bowie. Which, how much more do I have to say? This movie, David Bowie plays Tesla. That alone should be price of admission. But we'll do a quick overview for folks who need to be reminded or haven't seen it. This is an ongoing rivalry between two musicians that are played by Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. We have Scarlett Johansson is in here, Rebecca Hall's in here, and Michael Caine, as you would expect in a Nolan movie. And this rivalry gets pretty chaotic, pretty crazy. There's murders, there's a lot of betrayal. But that's the kind of premise here that we're talking about. And the main trick that's surrounded is a transported man trick, which was a real trick. And we'll get into spoilers here later, but was often betrayed by twins at this time. So, for Megan, you watching it as a first time, did you have guesses or hints as to where this was going to go? To like, were you aware that there was twists you should be? I mean, it's a Nolan movie, so probably that you were trying to guess at.
Not really. I think that it was stylistically quite. It was almost so stylistically different from a Nolan that you kind of forget. Almost, but then in looking back on it is when you start to see kind of his rhythm, I would say, in filmmaking. But that's kind of, and then in terms of, for me, I hadn't thought about, I really didn't suspect the like quasi sci-fi element that we're kind of hinting at here, that comes towards the end, and that's the quite defining part of the movie for me, comparing it to other, there are a few magic films, but they're a little steeped in reality and or kind of the grittiness of the world, and this was took it beyond that.
Well, Jim, you're a guest. Do you want to do the honors and tell, get with the twist we're hinting at it?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Dive in wherever you want from there.
Yeah. So, and before I mention kind of what the twist is, it's a pretty wicked twist, isn't it? I love that. I watched a cool YouTube video on the Easter eggs of The Prestige, is what it was called. And it was about a 21-minute video. And I mean, obviously, when you watch like maybe the movie a second time, or maybe even the first time, you notice that there are a lot of hints and clues and foreshadows of what occurs at the ending of the movie. And I swear, this must be like the most foreshadowed twist in all of moviedom. Because like, this guy goes through from the beginning of the movie to the very end, all the different times that Christopher Nolan is screaming at you that Borden is actually one of he is a twin brother of another Borden, essentially. They're twin brothers. Now, this is kept to the very end. And I confess, the first time I watched it, I had no clue that Borden's double was Borden. or was a clone or double or brother. And honestly, I didn't think he was a brother per se. For like the first 10 times I viewed this movie, I thought that the double was created from the Tesla machine. And by the way, folks, the science fiction element in this movie that Seth mentioned is that Algier goes to America and visits Tesla, Nicholas Tesla, and Nicholas Tesla has a machine that can essentially replicate a person. And it's fairly crazy that he can do this, but that's how Algier manages to effectively perform the transported man trick. And we find this out in fairly gruesome ways. But this whole time, I thought Borden used that machine. And I didn't realize until much later that he had a brother and he lived this trick with his whole life. He was absolutely committed to the magician craft, versus Algier, who really wasn't. He was a better showman, but a worse magician. Borden was a better magician, not quite the showman. A really cool contrast, but he was truly living it, and he foreshadowed that he was doing it right at the beginning of the movie. And I just marveled at how many times we were given clues as to what really happened. But it's just essentially a movie about doubles, and they came in unexpected places and formed a pretty amazing third act of the movie.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of foreshadowing, like you said, Jim. There's like, and it's a weird thing. Like, I think sometimes a movie foreshadowing a lot can be, worst case, it might be like The Sixth Sense, where you're like, well, I'm a fucking idiot on rewatching this. How'd I miss it? And at best sense, it's like, oh man, that was clever. It's like, oh, that's a clever line that really works in this instance. And among the most obvious first ones on a rewatch is when Christian Bale is trying to show a kid who cries at a bird.
Yes.
A trick that involves a bird being released, and he's like, "Oh no, see, the bird didn't die; he was released." And the kid says, "Well, where's his brother?" And that's one of the most obvious course ones. Like, that's literally what happens: is there's a brother, and Christian Bale's very impressed by this kid. Says he's very clever because that's how the trick works. There is a brother. Yeah, that's just one of many times in the movie where the movie hints at, but I think it's such a good movie and it's entertaining enough that you're not. I'm never one to watch a movie trying to solve it in the first few. And I think that's the more fun way to do it, but it is rewarding. It's reminders that there's these clever hints, there's these clever foreshadowings. Memento has a lot of foreshadowing, like really all his movies do, that have a twist.
Right.
In a way that just feels well done rather than pandering or obvious.
I have a question for the group.
Yes.
I'm sure there are more movies that do this, but I cannot come up with them at the moment. So let me preface this by saying that I've never been a real big fan of movies that tell the story in a disjointed manner. I get that when Quentin Tarantino did it with Pulp Fiction, it was cool. I get that.
Right.
And as much as I love those movies and that movie, never been too fond of it. And as such, over the years, I have never liked when filmmakers chop a story up so much. I want to know, I've always wanted to say that I don't think this helps the story. I think this just makes it novel and weird and quirky. And that's it doesn't work with me. Books caught on and started to do it that way too, where books tell a story in very disjointed ways or have many different storylines. And this story, I noticed that it's not really Pulp Fictioned, so to speak.
Yeah.
The disjointedness is chronological. The story jumps back and forth between time frames, like almost, and there's no warning. There's absolutely no warning. There's really
no meanwhile Colorado. There's no timestamps.
There isn't. And it never once frustrated me. And I think that is one of the reasons why this movie is so dang rewarding for rewatches and why it's so beloved, is because it's like unwrapping a mystery, and every every layer that you unwrap is just more rewarding than the one before. And I think its disjointedness has actually worked in its favor. Now, I don't know.
Right.
What if this movie, like, I bet you, I wonder, I bet someone has like recut this movie to have it be perfectly linear,
That's probably a thing you can find on YouTube. Yeah.
I bet you it's there. And if we saw it,
Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be as cool of a movie. Maybe. I don't know. It's a pretty decent story.
Yeah.
It's it's mystery, it's intrigue, there's a major twist. It's emotional. There's relationship issues that are very, tragic and intriguing. But dang. So I just want to get your thoughts on, was it jarring or was it very curious, the way the story was told?
Yeah. Megan, do you mind talking first? Because you have the most like freshest first view into this. I've probably seen this movie a dozen times.
Sure. I mean, I think I agree with you, Jim. I tend to find non-linear
Thank you. I'm not alone.
Yet again, a little difficult. But then I also kind of blame a little bit of my pea brain, or like, what to be honest, what social media has done to us, what quick quick fix media has really done to us, and certainly me. So that's on me. But I do agree that I found this one a little bit more sophisticated, like the cuts a little more sophisticated than Memento. Like for me, I thought it like that one was a little
right.
I think just a little harder to like stomach, or like, really focus, pay attention. Have
you seen Tenet yet? Tenet?
Not yet.
Oh, get ready. It's worse. Sorry. Conversation for another
day. I heard that it got bad reviews, or like bad audience reviews, probably literally for exactly that reason. But in talking about it with everybody too, I think it also makes me realize that like I feel like Nolan is really homaging the whole genre of like magic in and of itself, and like we're talking about trickery, and that's literally the whole point, is that it's like the thing is right in front of you. So
he's calling his shot. He calls his shot over and over again, and it's still a magic trick. It's literally. It's like a movie about the behind the scenes of magic. Like I think so. There's prestige, there's turns, there's I can't remember the formula that Cutter gave at the beginning of the movie. But it's about it looked very like a very realistic movie. They're talking about the behind the scenes of magic, how a trick is formed. There's jealousies. They're looking at rival magicians or older magicians. They're talking about it. Just there was no mystique. And then all of a sudden the Tesla arc just completely obliterated that. Now we're back to complete. But yeah, I really cool analysis there.
Well, I think that's a great point by both of you, and I want to say I think part of the reason why it's so tedious often, the films that are non-linear, is like you mentioned Pulp Fiction, Jim, and I think a lot of much worse movies made by worse directors wanted to make Pulp Fiction, and so I think we have a lot of shitty versions of it that aren't that masterful. And Pulp Fiction is not the best at it. It just became such a like, well, that movie made a lot of money.
Novel, right?
Yeah, and I think Nolan got kind of unfairly compared to Tarantino. Like they're both directors who are auteurs, but like stylistically, they couldn't really be more different, in my opinion. But yeah, I think this movie really works. And I was actually just reading. Apparently, is roughly a time jump every minute of film in this movie.
Oh my goodness!
Which is drastic, and they're very smooth, because like you said, Megan, like Memento was pretty, like it's literally black and white, or it's in color. It's a very obvious we're in a different timeline now.
Yeah.
And I think on the first watch there was a couple of moments like, wait, are they still in Colorado or are they in London? Okay, they're in London. And you can figure it out really quick. It's never like 10 minutes have gone by and like, oh, I didn't realize we were here. It's really masterfully, it's really incredible editing, I think. And costuming and acting, of like, these are where these characters are at this time. These are where their characters are at in the future. It's like, all right, it's not just as obvious as Hugh Jackman has a limp now. This is a more grizzled, angry man compared to a more naive, hopeful man, different scenes. So we have that. And so I think it works really well. I think one of my favorite things about this movie is, in general, rivalry is fun. It's fun to see two two guys who hate each other, but
Oh yeah.
it's also in. It doesn't matter. It's magicians. It's such a who gives a shit about which magician's the best. This isn't rival CEOs. This isn't the presidential race. This isn't a thing that's really going to affect the general public, other than two people's little obsession. And I kind of like that. That's what Nolan wanted to do, is talk about obsession in great detail with something as I don't say, not mundane because it's exciting, but inconsequential as magicians.
It's a tragic
I think that's
obsession
a lot
too.
more fun than it is, yeah, but it's a lot more fun than I think one of the other movies you recommended was that you had on your list, Jim, was The Fountain, which I frankly have not seen, but I was thinking about like something like Pi or something like The Wrestler, which is a much more very grim obsession movie. Is not fun but good. And so I like that he made an obsession movie that's pretty fun, that is compared to a lot of the other ones out there.
I'm glad you mentioned The Fountain.
Is. Yeah, I still need to see The Fountain because that's Hugh Jackman too.
That movie and this movie were the two movies that I realized that Hugh Jackman's for real. Like this guy can do. He has a wide range. He's an incredible actor.
Yeah.
I think his performance in The Fountain is much more visceral and wide ranging than this one. But you believed in the journey of the obsession for both of these men.
Sure.
And you fell into it. And I think that Nolan on purpose tried to present both as neutral parties, meaning that he didn't try to sway you one way or the other. Both of those guys, I think, committed enough, unfortunate decisions where the audience would be given a chance to hate them both equally. But I think ultimately one was, positioned higher than the other. And that's another thing that I have tried to figure out through many viewings of this movie is, who am I rooting for here? Ultimately,
that's literally the question I was going to ask you both, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, because like this is, I think the more I see this movie, I'm thinking more about what I'm learning about the relationships in the movie. And curious for Megan's perspective, because she's a fresh watch, Seth's, but which character, Algier or Borden? I'm saying that right? I just had a moment of panic. Yeah. Algier? Okay. Yeah. It's like, Jim, don't mispronounce the name of the character. Which one did you have more sympathy for? And which one did you think took the worst path? Because all throughout this time, I think I was probably one of the few that was actually rooting for Algier. I think it's because I felt sorry for him. I honestly did. I felt because I just remembered, no matter what this guy does, and I better not back myself in a corner here. He's done some pretty awful things. But the death of his wife was, I think, very traumatizing and tragic for him. And it was, I think, one of the Bordens took the risk, had his wife with the harder knot that she couldn't undo, and it caused her tragic death. And which is just, it's awful. And this man's wife is dead, and it was genuine pain. So it's like, okay, he needs to get back at Borden. But I can't root for him anymore because he just did something really dumb. Oh, geez. Okay. All right. His wife did die. Okay. Now he's making this really awful decision. And so ultimately, yes. So long way of saying I'm less of a fan of Algier. I think I understand Borden more, but I'm not letting him off the hook. I'm curious to see your thoughts on how you viewed which one was making the better decisions and which one is the more tragic figure.
No one is free of sin in this movie.
No.
Megan, do you want to go first? Because I have a strong opinion on this, but I also would like to hear yours as a.
Oh man, it is complicated. I mean, yes.
I'm glad you said that. Complicated.
There's no other word, but I feel like I think that it's purposefully set up that Algier is a sympathetic character, like pretty much almost throughout, besides things get a little crazy in the end, I would argue. And Borden as the opposite, as his foil. Like I think that was pretty clear throughout, and maybe it's just the charismatic nature of Hugh Jackman, I think he's great in this. Is probably the best thing I've seen him in.
Absolutely.
But I in that regard, I found him sympathetic like throughout all of it. But
Okay.
same, like I think it's about their deterioration that really like helps
Okay.
solidify it. I think that Borden is it's kind of like impressive how Borden thought of literally everything. So I think that
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
Borden's literally the mastermind by the end of it. So for me there's
He
no
won.
denying that. Yeah, he
Yeah.
won. So that was the feeling towards it, but quite an interesting setup. Like you don't expect this kind of villainous he had no like underdog also character. It was just
Right.
kind of there wasn't
Yeah.
like there was really a lack of sympathy that was created throughout it, but I don't know, it makes his triumph pretty surprising and quite the surprise. Quite the catch.
I think
guess.
ultimately
Sure.
Algier goes too far. Like we haven't mentioned it. I just
Yeah.
realized we should probably. I think I gave just half
Yeah,
the twist.
once you go to mention it, Jim.
The
I think that's a good-
the
that's a good point.
major reveal at the end is that Algier has been cloning himself to execute the transporting man, and unfortunately, he has made the fairly awful decision to release his clone into if okay, so this is just odd. It's like, Jim, you're honestly explaining this. So in the transported man, one of the Hugh Jackmans goes through the stage under it, and the clone appears, and everyone's amazed that he transported across the stage, actually behind the seats to show himself. But the person who felt the Hugh Jackman that fell through the stage falls into an encased water. The top is locked, and he drowns to death. And however many times Algier has performed this trick, which could be, I don't know, 50, 100, it could be many, many times. He has essentially killed himself that many times. It's revealed at the end, and it's fairly awful, which really is the final.
Frames Borden for murder too.
Yeah, he manages to. Yeah, Borden is not the only smart in terms of the chess game between these two guys. Algier manages to frame Borden for his quote unquote murder, and a very deft steps to get him to be framed for it. Puts him into prison and executes one of the Bordens essentially, and it's tragic.
Yeah.
And so one Borden is left, one Algier is left at the end, and ultimately Borden happens upon Algier strategically and shoots him to death. And they both have some revelations at the end, and the last frame of the movie, I believe, is a shot of all of the what's the word I'm struggling for? The tanks, yes, the tanks. The water tanks, they're under the stage, I believe. And it's
I must say,
pretty
expensive way to die.
I know. Yes.
That's a good
how
point,
did they
Megan.
get that much water?
Yeah.
Well, they got that financier towards the end. That's a good point. So I want to answer the question first, because I think I think the film very much wants. It is important as a viewer of this movie that you are largely rooting for Algier, for Hugh Jackman's character.
Yeah,
we'll talk about the cast in a second. Everyone's fucking great in this movie, and it's very fun seeing Christian Bale as not Batman. He's great as Batman, but it's fun to see him in a Nolan movie as something else, and it's fun to see Hugh Jackman, who was still playing Wolverine primarily in this movie, is a completely different character. Everyone's great in this, but on rewatching this, I had the realization, like obviously, Hugh Jackman's wife, Algier's wife's death is an accident, and he's the first one wronged, but it is an accident. His first retaliation is planning to murder Borden, because the first, you have an ongoing series throughout the movie of the other one ruining the other one's trick on stage, and it's great. It's very rewarding if you like a revenge
just a back and forth, really
great. It's so meaty, it's great. But the first attempt of this is Borden, Christian Bale's character, is going to do a bullet catch, and Hugh Jackman shows up and ruins that, like puts the basically alters the gun and then is pointing it straight at Christian Bale. He is planning to absolutely murder him. This is his first attempt. Fallon, who we find out later is the twin, knocks the gun away, so it just shoots off 2 of Christian Bale's fingers, which, again, among the most grimmest details of this movie, means his twin now has to match him and has
Isn't that insane?
It is. Weird familiar note. My dad is missing half a finger, and so this movie always kind of reminds me of him. He accidentally cut half off of a table.
Is he one of a twin? Is he a twin?
That's exactly
I sure hope
living
so.
a double life. Does he do magic
he
tricks?
Had the opportunity to reattach it and didn't want to drive to Berkeley 3 times a week for the physical therapy. Literally, the fact that you have to go to Berkeley and deal with parking was the big factor for him to decide not to do that. So,
California traffic and parking is
exactly, yeah.
He needed the machine.
So I would rather be missing half a finger. Exactly. So all that to say, Borden, I think, is the more sympathetic character because Alger takes it so much further so fast. It goes straight to murder, whereas a lot of the subsequent retaliations are career damaging. You know, Borden's first one is being fully prepared to kill him, and if he wasn't stopped, would have. But again, the move, it's also kind of weird that that's the first retaliation because you have several more in the next 2 hours of this movie that are, compared to that first one, less, but also where they are at the careers feel kind of greater. Let's talk about the cast. Everyone, I think, does a great job in this. Do you have a favorite performance in this movie, to both of you?
I'm gonna have to say the woman who played Sarah,
Rebecca Hall, I think.
I did like how you saw her process when she finally broke down, and you know, I initially thought that she, unfortunately, for the audience, she kills herself from just turmoil of this relationship with one of 2 Bordens, Borden and Fallon. And I initially thought that she killed herself because she found out the truth. And I don't think that's the case. I don't know. It's not really necessarily revealed. I learned from another perspective that she killed herself because of the dual nature, because Fallon and Borden were different. One loved her and one did not. And that back and forth created just this cascading effect of emotional turmoil that just drove her mad, and she eventually chose to end her life. That process was, I think, a really integral part of the movie, because there needs to be emotional turmoil in this. I mean, the guys are fighting back and forth, and it's crazy enough, but I needed another perspective that added some turmoil. Though, I'm going to say one more thing. Christian Bale, for me, the whole movie is made when he is being marched to his execution, and he talks and he says to the guard, "Are you watching closely?" And the look on the guard's face is like, I don't know what's about to happen. I think something otherworldly is it, because he truly believed that Borden was this otherworldly magician figure. And I believed it too when I was watching. The mood, the music, it was just the tension. It was just, when he said that line, it's like, oh, Christian Bale's so good. You know, so yeah, those 2 performances pop out to me.
Sure. And I have to say, I think Rebecca Hall's character is very grounding for this story too, because it's believable that this obsessed guy would kind of be horrible in a marriage. You know, and it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, like, well, Hugh Jackman's relationship was cut early because of, you know, an accident, but he's not great to Scarlett Johansson. You know, he's bad in the relationship too. But I think it does a great to undercut, or rather to misdirect what's really happening. And now we're cutting close on time here, so we should probably move to closing comments and recommendations. That work for you, Megan?
Sure, yes. We could go a little over. Sorry, guys.
Okay, that's fine. Well, did you mind answering the cast question, if that's right, Megan?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, I like Alger's character and Hugh Jackman's performance because I can't get over to me, he goes like mad scientist, like
Mhm.
towards the end. Like, you know, if you will.
It looks like he's going mad.
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it does.
And it's such a good representation of like, it's very clear to me that he's the one that got power drunk completely, like
Yeah.
from the possibilities of the scientific things that they discover and everything, and you know, possibilities that they discover. So I think he plays it so well and so like believable, and I love someone going power hungry, going crazy.
Right. We should also note there's definitely a class distinction between
That's
Algiers
right.
and Borden too,
Yeah.
Yes.
which I think works well as a viewing. That's interesting kind of commentary of like Borden is Cockney. You know, he has that working class Cockney accent, which Hugh Jackman's doing an American accent, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not
Yes.
English, and it's interesting because I mean he's Australian and he could have been Australian. I gotta be honest, I watched this movie so many times before I realized, wait, he's not doing an English accent like I just assumed he was. He's doing an American accent.
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what blows my mind, Seth? I'm sorry, we're not supposed to interrupt because of our Wi-Fi connection, but I can't help myself. I remember last time when we went over the thing and I revealed like this cool theory I discovered on YouTube. Well, I did it again with
Jim.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't as cool and mind bending as the ending of the thing, but someone commented that Algier claimed that he would never want to live a lie. Like what would be required to live your magic trick, to live your magic, you would need to kind of, you know, sacrifice a lot in order to live out your craft. So if you have a double, that's really hard to maintain a life, and Algier never wanted to do that. And someone said that when he came back as Lord Crowley, I can't remember which one it was, that was his true identity. And that
I love this theory already, actually.
Okay, are you familiar with it, Seth?
I haven't heard it, but I love the idea of it, and I'm already making
that was
connections.
That was his true identity. I'm like, I tried to think back on the movie. I don't remember the clues that would bring someone to this conclusion, but it was fascinating because that was his real identity. And the American accent, the great Danton, the Algier, was a fake identity that he tried to live because he wanted to pursue magic, but it was a shame to his family. So we had to kind of create this new persona and pursue it. But that's where he got all of his money, and he could bankroll pretty much anything. And
well, that's just it. It's like, because Christian Bale never has as much money.
No, he doesn't.
But is playing across the street for most of the movie, right?
And and his transporting, it was like in this small hall. It was like in a small hall, and Algier is like in this grand theater with all these cool special effects. And it was just ironic.
Hugh Jackman's clothes are notably better than Christian Bale's, and sorry, I'm using character names and actor names. And Hugh Jackman's married, so he's supporting. Like, so if he works at the same place, I'm not making, and he's making the same money as Christian Bale. How is he and his wife getting by doing this? I think it makes a lot of sense that he'd have another source of income.
Yeah, he came from money.
And like, why would he change his accent? So I like this theory. I will say there's a book, we should acknowledge this is based off a novel, that quite a lot of things were changed to, is my understanding. Also, best case scenario, the novelist loved the movie, thought it was great, and thought there was a lot of clever things added that he didn't think of, that he thought Nolan did a great job in. So for all I know, that's maybe more directly in the novel. I had never heard this theory before, Jim, but I really like it.
It added another layer that fit the dynamics of the movie, that Algier, it made him even kind of more of a pathetic, tragic character.
That's right.
I still have some sympathy for him, even though I want to have sympathy for tragic characters that make horrible decisions, because I
you're not that kind of guy.
I don't know. I'm just that kind of guy, you know. Just want to, but that just kind of added to his hypocrisy, that he or a tragic hypocrisy, that he was running away from something and trying to live something else, and he became the thing that he said he didn't want to be. Anyways, that's the theory. I thought it was very interesting. I'm sure that the more I watch this movie, the more little hints and things that will come up in the future. So there you go.
You're getting famous for these conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
I'll keep it coming.
People want them, and
the people want the theories.
Yes, another great one.
You know, on that of theories, I think it should be noted, There's a lot of theories that I agree with. That this movie and Inception are both primarily about movies. You know, when he's saying the audience wants to be fooled, he is not just talking about the audience in the film. He's talking about you, the guy watching the movie. You know, you want to be fooled by the movie you're watching. So I think there's that layer that is direct that works really well with this movie. Is like, you know, we watch movies and we want to be surprised. We don't want to know the truth.
Yeah,
and it's true.
Yeah, when we go to a
the
magic
Inception
show,
theory is a lot more specific about like who's the director, who's the writer, etc. That is, we'll get into another time, but it's cool, and I think it's frankly, I like that Nolan has two movies that are largely accepted as being about movies that plot wise have nothing to do with movies. You know, this isn't Singing in the Rain or something. This isn't actually in Hollywood about making a movie, but the themes are directly related to movies. I think that's really cool, and that's a better way to do things. So this, I think a criticism that is fair, but you know, different movies makers make different type of things, is female characters are often lacking in Nolan movies. I think oddly, as limited as they are in Oppenheimer, it's among his best. Like I believe Blunt is really interesting in that movie, and she has a very small part, but she's very strong. This movie maybe has the most screen time for multiple women in a Nolan movie. I haven't broken down that math exactly, but between Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson and the actress playing the wife in the beginning, I think you have more dialogue. Because so often Nolan has the refrigerator wife, which happens in this. Folks, if you're not familiar, that's the character's wife dies, which is the motivating factor. That's Memento, that's Inception, you know, Dark Knight. So I was wondering, like, did you notice that? I'm not saying this is like feminist criticism in this movie or anything, but like, did that kind of, what did you think of the female characters in this movie, particularly compared to other Nolan movies? Did it do anything for you? Did it seem notably different, or was it just kind of there?
It's always a question for me of it is that of its time frame. I think that 2006 was like, I just can't recall, or this was very common, like around the amount of like screen time for women that from what and unless it's like a very indie teeny tiny something or specifically about something, but I feel like that's kind of like the question that I always wonder is I'm like, I remember films being like this. That's kind of like why I said it was nostalgic for me, is I remember mostly, or like a lot of two head honcho dudes like in movies that you want to be, that I wanted to be. So but I mean I agree. It was really nice to see their characters. They're both fun to watch. I think Scarlett Johansson is good in this, and kind of funny that she like switches her accent too, like to British, but she does great. Like she reminded me of like a Keira Knightley-esque like vibe to her. I wonder. I was kind of like shopping around like in my head about what would be cool roles, but it's that's the question I always have, basically, is like, is this just a thing of the time frame? I agree that Oppenheimer was a little bit notably better and like a little more modern, I would say, maybe in that regard, but that's just kind of like what I was
like
noticing.
Emily Blunt's allowed to be a fucking strange, and Florence Pugh are like unconventional women, and I think that's often like, I'm going off the one I know, who obviously includes my wife. It's like, I don't necessarily need the strong, great representation. Like, give me a weird woman. Give me somebody who's a little bit more human than like, here's why I'm the hero of this story, and here's my manifesto, and like, get the scene in Oppenheimer where he comes home and the baby's crying and Emily Blunt is just drinking martinis. That felt like a much stronger, stranger, obviously not like this is what a woman should be, but like a very strong portrayal of a woman who's like, she's just fucking done. And that was a great scene in that movie. And for folks who are listening, I didn't love Oppenheimer. Honestly, I've been realizing I think I like Tenet better, which is a fucking weird monkey paw situation. I've watched Tenet, thought I wanted him to do something more grounded than he did Oppenheimer. It's like, no, he should do shit like Tenet. He should do action, because I think that's what I've been realizing about Nolan is he is an intelligent filmmaker. He's an auteur. He can really get to these great emotions he also makes popcorn movies, and that's not bad. He makes fun movies.
No.
And I think that's what's so great
movies.
about The Prestige is like this is a relatively big budget for the time. It was $40 million. This movie looks great. It's not a superhero movie. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
It is still big. It's still lavish. It is a fun movie. You can just chomp on the popcorn too and have a great time. And it really connects with me emotionally, and I think largely because it doesn't forget it's an entertaining movie. It's kind of that first and foremost, and like those twists, the time use of the jumping back and forth, the obsession, the acting, all serves making an entertaining movie rather than making like a art movie. Not that I have anything against art movies, but I think he's at his best when he's making an entertaining movie that he makes like an art film. So and I think in general that's just kind of true for a lot of filmmakers, and a lot of Oppenheimer was very entertaining, and those factors were the things that are kind of been in all of his movies. I think it kind of fumbled the ball with as big of themes it was talking about. Sorry, it's impossible to talk about a Nolan movie now if I talk about Oppenheimer. The Oscars haven't happened yet. So he is the front forerunner to win. And I won't be mad living in a world where Christopher Nolan wins an Oscar by any means. I think that'd be great. And often people forget what someone actually won an Oscar for, particularly a director. I think Scorsese should win. I think a lot of other people should win for their movies, but he didn't make a bad movie. I think I just miss something like this that is earnest and talking about obsession and talking about more fun themes, not taking on something as heavy as the A-bomb and maybe not dealing with the consequences of it. So let's start to bring down the mood a little bit, folks. It's just the times. I also have to say, on a lighter note here, Andy Serkis being in here as like not a stop motion, thing, as not a motion capture bodysuit, because he's the Gollum and so many other things. He's in those the latest Rise of the Planet of the Apes movies. Great seeing him as a physical person in this movie. And great him being like the much more talkative person to his eccentric genius boss. He's kind of like the great sidekick to the mad scientist in this.
Yeah. I love Michael Caine as well. That voice is just,
of course,
it won't quit.
It's iconic. It's iconic.
Yeah.
Perfect connect piece in the puzzle.
Absolutely. I was reading that Michael Caine talked about, I guess, in interviews, how he would alter his voice and his posture to be in this movie. It's like, and if you've seen the Michael Caine movies, like he is talking slightly differently, but he still has such an iconic voice that I wonder if it pisses him off that most people would still, if they're doing an impression of Michael Caine in this movie,
I know.
They're probably doing a normal Michael Caine voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're probably doing Get Carter or anything else.
That's funny.
I wonder if that bothers him, because if people don't notice, but he is talking notably different in the same way that like kind of all great actors. Like that's not Christian Bale's normal voice, Well, Jim, I just have to say, I'm so glad you brought this movie to us. Again, this is a favorite. This is one I could rewatch any day of the week and be very happy.
Yeah.
Very entertained by. And it isn't like you're talking about the movies that kind of enriching. I think this is an enriching movie in a lot of ways. Frankly, it's a good message to not be obsessed with anything.
Yeah.
Particularly work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think this movie goes to places that I think most people wouldn't. But nevertheless, I feel, because of the supporting characters in the movie, most notably Sarah and Cutter, I think they represent the audience, because Cutter is just deeply disappointed and hurt in who Algier became. And Sarah, I think, represented us because she represented the pain of not knowing what the flying ferret was going on. And now it's an exaggeration. Now, it's not like we're in turmoil watching this movie, but I liked what she brought to the movie because she represented us, and the pain of obsession, or the pain that results in the consequences of someone you love, losing them to a pursuit that you can't control, and it's awful to go through, and there's nothing she really could have done about it, and fault on these guys for ruining the relationships in their lives and ruining themselves. I mean, yeah, Borden survived, but I can't imagine that he's living with the wake of this terrible conflict that he's experienced his whole life. I can't imagine it's going to be great. He did end up with his daughter, which is good.
Right.
But yeah, so you're left with the aftermath of, man, these guys just went really, 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 really far. And while they made decisions that we'll never make in our lives, you're just like, dang, do I really want to criticize this guy too much? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I might be just speaking gibberish and nonsense, but this is really just what my comments were really just a reflection of my trying to figure out Algier. He, to me, is the key to this whole movie. It's what keeps me coming back to this movie, is trying to figure out why he did what he did.
Right.
And trying to sympathize with him and being horrified by him at the same time. This movie will continue to give riches, and I like my movies like that. So, you know, those are the movies I want to watch now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Megan, do you have any closing comments, or should we move to recommendations?
I think we can move to recommendations. That was a beautiful closer, Jim.
That's what they call me, Jim the closer.
Jim, so I won't try. Extra works because Jim and I are in sales.
That's right.
That makes sense.
Jim, you were one of 3 coworkers I've stayed in touch with my entire life, and I love that for us.
I so look forward to our occasional conversations. Most coworkers that I moved to a different job, I never talked to them again, but I still talk to you, and I love it. I'm so glad you and I got along so well.
It is rare. I'm so glad.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
No. All right, Jim, as our guest, why don't you start us off with a rec?
Yeah, so, you know, I'm actually inspired to recommend a previously mentioned movie. We're kind of on a Hugh Jackman kick right now.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I saw The Fountain first or if I saw The Prestige first, or which one was released. I don't quite remember which one was, but The Fountain is a movie like The Prestige that has stuck with me after all these years. It is also a movie that is kind of told in a disjointed way, but I don't fault the movie for it, because it's actually kind of an interesting story. Not to get into what the movie is about, but it is kind of a science fiction movie that is very much grounded in just a relationship between a man and his wife. And it is absolutely, it is engrossing, this movie, and it's because of Hugh Jackman's performance. He carries the whole movie. It is all about him, and the emotions that this guy displays in this movie are just incredible to watch. It's just a marvel to see. So I would recommend that everyone, if you're inspired by this conversation about The Prestige, you should watch it. And if you want more Hugh Jackman, which is always a good thing, this guy is a serious actor, and I think one of his best performances is in the movie The Fountain. Great movie. Definitely watch it, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's got some quirks, a little bit of sci-fi in it, but it's fundamentally a movie about a man, how he loses his wife. And it's just very engrossing, and that's my recommendation.
Cool. Excited to see it. That's been on my watch list for over a decade, so I will finally get to it now that I have the Jim Briggs endorsement. Megan, why don't you go next?
Okay. I'm going to recommend a magic movie, because I think also in talking about Nolan, I think Nolan creates atmosphere, is like what something that I'm realizing.
Is there a Tesla machine in this movie? I'm kidding.
What a great.
As a matter of fact, there is.
Almost. So the movie I'm going to recommend.
It replicates food. Okay, I'm done.
The movie I'm going to recommend, which is, I laugh already as I say it, but I really enjoyed Now You See Me. I need to rewatch that movie, but it does have, it has like a little bit of it. I thought also in reminiscing about it and seeing this movie, I think there's a ton of parallels going on. I'm it must be an homage to The Prestige because they do the water tank trick. They get into a little bit of the idea of like sci-fi elements coming into the thing, and also just about like um more like competition, I would say, but just competitive like nature of magic and like showmanship in general, and kind of like the seediness and the inauthenticity, I guess, of this genre, this performance style. And it's a romp. Like I really enjoyed it. I need to rewatch it, like I said, but it was kind of my first soiree into like, you know, I mean, it reminded me of wanting to be a magician. This movie kind of, I was like, I want to be, I can do that. Taking notes about how they do their little tricks and stuff. I was like, I can use that later, later on in my life. So that's my little soiree into magician movies that
that's awesome.
I can't forget it. Like it was it's funny.
That's great.
Funny.
Yeah, the Prestige doesn't really inspire you to be a musician, though it does give you some ideas if you're like locked to this epic battle with a rival.
Yes.
So yeah, gives you ideas of how to take down like a rival in high school or something.
Yeah, rival, just bullet catch trick,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Taking notes.
You trick them to become a magician so you can
frame them for murder.
Like their trick went wrong. Yeah. This isn't going to be my recommendation, but just one time, but this movie came out in a weird time, and that like The Illusionist also came out this year.
Right, yeah.
Which is a pretty fun movie. And a movie scoop that also has Hugh Jackman and Scarlett Johansson. I'm addressing this because listeners will address it. But my recommendation is not what I expected to recommend, but backstory here. I own this movie on DVD. I popped in the DVD, and I had a completely different movie that I was ready to recommend, and then this movie is old enough that it has the coming soon on home video pop up
Old
before,
school, man.
And
Sweet.
which is like, and my wife and I are like, oh shit, let's watch it, because I have no idea what's coming soon on DVD in 2006. And Deja Vu, the movie called Deja Vu by Tony Stark, starring Denzel Washington. Movie that I loved when I saw. I've only seen it once, and I got hit with a ton of bricks. Like, this movie fucking rules. The trailer is great. The trailer does not really reveal what happens in this movie. It's a really interesting,
a little bit of a mind bender.
Very engaging. Yeah, it's a mind bender. It is things that are not natural are happening. It's a crime thriller with quite a few supernatural twists. It's set in New Orleans, one of my favorite cities.
Yeah.
And it just rules. It was such a great trailer too. It's like, man, I wish trailers like this. It's like, this is a sci-fi. This trailer doesn't tell you it's a sci-fi. It implies something weird going on.
That's cool.
And it's something weird's going on in a way that it's like, was it a conspiracy? Is it like they're covering up a crime, or what it is? Or is it like full on supernatural? It's a great trailer. And it really made me miss not just trailers from that era, but this movie. And so I haven't seen it in a long time, but that's my recommendation, and I'm excited to watch it. And like, I got so pumped watching this trailer. I'm more excited to watch that than I am doing part 2, which I haven't seen yet, because of how good this trailer was, and just the nostalgia factor of watching the coming soon on DVD section. So we are highly endorsing owning things on DVD.
Yeah.
Which I will say, that is something I love about Nolan. Is he told people buy Oppenheimer because you don't want to count on it being on Netflix, then it's sold to HBO, then it's sold to Paramount, then it's true. And that's what happens.
I mean, very Nolan of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are our recs, folks. But do you have to say Hugh Jackman is up there with Guy Pearce and people I really wish he'd work with again?
Yeah,
because he got great performances out of these people, and he works with the same people so often. So I really hope that happens. And Christian Bale, obviously, really everyone. But Jim, I have to thank you for bringing this movie to us.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me about it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, what a good movie, and we're loving those conspiracy theories. You got to keep them coming.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, next movie we do.
Have to bring the YouTube conspiracy.
Yeah.
Every
it'll be like a new segment, And now it's time for Jim's YouTube perspective. What weird weird esoteric theory did you find on YouTube, Jim?
We'll give you the last 15 minutes. Please, just everything you got.
You only need to find one person who believes this. That's all it takes.
That's all I need. Just get my hooks into one, and I got them.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. Well, folks, thank you for listening. More episodes coming soon.
Absolutely. Find us always on filmoptimist.com. All of our socials are there.
Yep.